Nearly 2 years after the brutal killing of a veteran Las Vegas newspaper reporter shot Sin City and made headlines across the nation, the murder trial gets underway in just a few hours. Ex-politician and public official Robert Tellis is charged with first-degree murder in the stabbing death of Jeff Gehrman in September of 2022. Prosecutors say Tellis was angry about Gehrman's reporting of alleged misconduct in the Clark County Public Administrator's office. Tellis was in charge of that office. Police say he wore a disguise walking toward Gehrman's home before the murder and then found the cut-up hat and a pair of bloody shoes inside Tellis's home. He maintains, though, his innocence during a jailhouse interview with our Las Vegas affiliate.
I need to say that I'm innocent and that I was framed.
How do you explain your vehicle near his home? How do you explain the video of an individual who appears to be you? How do you explain the clothing that was at your house? How do you explain the DNA?
As far as the vehicle goes, that there's a vehicle that looks like mine. As far as any other evidence goes, again, as far as what time it may have been planted, I couldn't say. You know, again, I know it's an incredible story, but that is the story.
Well, jury selection is about to get underway. This trial is expected to last 2 weeks. So here now with me to break down this case is Misty Marris, legal analyst and trial attorney. Misty, great to see you. This is one we have been talking about now for, ever since it happened. What do you think will be the most difficult hurdle for each side when it comes to jury selection specifically, because this case has received not only so much attention nationally, but also locally where it's being tried?
Absolutely. This has been about 2 years in the making. So this case has so much attention on it. Of course, you have a renowned journalist and an ex-politician, which is also something that's enhancing the eyes on this case. So for jury selection, it's really all about trying to seat individuals who can go into the door without being biased. It's not that they've never heard of the case. It's unlikely to find people in that location who know nothing about it. It's just that they can get into that door and listen to the evidence and make a determination based on that. And in furtherance of that, Nichole, some strategies that are common in high-profile cases like jury questionnaires, pre-screened questions, and other types of things that help weed out those who may have already formed an opinion. But I do think it's going to take a couple of days to actually seat a jury in a high-profile case like this.
And before this jury selection even begins, Misty, the judge actually is going to be hearing a final request to dismiss the case against Tellis and just call off the trial completely. Now, she has rejected other requests to dismiss the case. Is that likely to be the same result this time?
Very likely to be the same result, but from a defense attorney perspective, you're going to make that motion seeking dismissal, especially right before you go to trial. And some of the bases for this motion today relates to evidence that is allegedly destroyed and was improperly destroyed. So, for instance, there's body cam footage that is no longer in existence, according to the defense, that should have been preserved. They're saying that Tellis's civil rights were violated, and because this evidence no longer exists, this case needs to be thrown out. Really unlikely that this motion is successful. We've seen similar motions in the past, but of course, you're always preserving these issues from a defense attorney perspective, not just to try and get the case dismissed now, but you're preserving all of those issues for a potential appeal down the road. So not surprised to hear that this motion is happening, but unlikely for it to be successful for the defendant.
All right, so unlikely to be successful for the defendant. Speaking of the defendant, that man that we're seeing on our screen right now, Robert Tellis, he has hired and fired attorneys. He has served as his own defense lawyer. What is going to be the biggest hurdle when it comes to the defense in this case?
So the defense has a tough road here, and that's because evidence that relates directly to the killing. We saw that video of the man in the big straw hat and the orange vest, the DNA evidence, the fact that that straw hat cut up was found at his house, his sneakers, the match to his car. That is a lot of circumstantial evidence that can be pieced together to put him at the scene, and actually just extremely incriminating for the defendant in this case. And as you said, he's gone through several lawyers, including himself, who he represented himself at the preliminary hearing. Now, from a defense perspective, all of that is going to come out. The prosecution is going to lay that out, and they're going to tell this story about essentially a vendetta. And then they're going to show all of these pieces that were found in Tellis's home. That's tricky. But what the defense does have is attacking the investigation itself. Keep in mind, there's something here in this case where the police department had said they could not conduct a thorough investigation. And that's because a lot of the journalists, the victim in this case, his notes and his sources and his contacts are protected by the First Amendment. So from a defense perspective, I would exploit that in order to raise reasonable doubt and say, look, you're hearing it from the police department. There was not a full investigation. Eyes were on Tellis, and he was the target. So that's how the defense is going to try and overcome that mountain of evidence that we know the prosecution is going to focus on.
Well, we know, Misty, this case is far from over. We're going to have you back to talk more about the prosecution as the case unfolds. But just really quickly, do you think we'll see Robert Tellis take the stand?
You know, I think we are going to, and I don't know if that will be against his attorney's advice, because it's the client's decision. The attorney says the good, the bad, and the ugly to take the stand. And in a case like this, you probably want to just try and raise that reasonable doubt. Of course, it's a game time decision, but he has made very public statements that he wants to tell his story. He did that jailhouse phone call, so we may actually see him take the stand, keeping in mind, ultimately, it is his decision.
We will see what happens. Legal analyst and trial attorney Misty Marris, thank you.
Thank you.